Caroline grew up in a small town, which promptly instilled the desire to spread her wings. After studying aviation management at Purdue and getting her private pilot license, she moved to Barcelona, with the country, not Indiana, without a word of Spanish in her vocabulary, to teach English for a year. These days, she's a little more domestic, enjoying life in Carmel with her husband, Frederick, and children. The next adventure hopefully will include writing the great American memoir, experimenting with many delicious recipes, and perhaps a master's in social work, and continuing hurtling through motherhood. She is a one-woman show behind the Likewise Social, a social media consulting agency, and is the mother of girls. Give a warm Sparks welcome to our September headliner, Caroline.
Touching hands.
Thank you for coming out. I promise if I see a young woman and her dog flying by, I'll give you guys the warning to duck and cover or something. Well, I find that you normally can't tell by looking at people what they're going through, and I don't think you can tell by looking at me, but I'm probably going through about the worst period. I hope it's the worst anyway of my life. Now I'll tell you a little more about that later, but first I want to talk to you about something I've discovered through some of this that has been a real comfort to me, and that is the idea of continuity. And the definition, as you can see here, is the unbroken and consistent existence or operation of something over a period of time. Now, when I first read that definition, I immediately thought of an old saying that I'm sure all of you are familiar with, and I didn't realize it, but it comes from Ecclesiastes 1:9. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. It's that last part that gets you. There's nothing new under the sun. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was like a 20-year-old, I found expressions like this pretty darn depressing. I mean, here you are, you want to explore, you want to invent something new, set the world on fire, and then here's people telling you, yeah, you're never really going to invent something that hasn't been done before. And even the things that we think of as being modern and new in this new millennium, if you think about it, all of those things are really just versions of something else that's come before. One of my favorite examples of that here in town is a friend of mine named Ryan Brock, and he started a content marketing company called Metonymy Media, which is, I'm going to say a Greek name, which is important here in a second. Anyway, I would say Ryan is your typical millennial. He can do any kind of social media tool with his eyes closed. He can update your website, do anything like that that he needs to do for his job. But once you get to know Ryan, you'll find out that he is fluent in Latin, because Ryan is someone who just feels in his bones his connection to what he does now and what has always existed. And he can quote Greek and Roman philosophers and historians to you. He's written books about it, connecting all these ancient authors to what he does, because he sees himself in that lineage of a storyteller that's always existed. If you think about whether you're a soldier, a teacher, a healer, a politician, a holy person, all of these things have been around since the beginning of time. Well, for me, back to that intro about the hardest time in my life, I found my own continuity a little bit closer to home. March 12th of last year, I lost my beautiful, bubbly, healthy, affectionate 4-year-old daughter, Audrey, here, pretty much overnight, to a common virus. My whole family was there at the hospital to kind of say goodbye at the end, and that's something that's come to mean a lot to me since then. As I was in a fog of grief for months after that, I kind of started to notice something that surprised me, and that's that my mom, who I'm very close to, seemed almost more upset than I was. She was anxious and nervous all the time. She would cry if Audrey's name even came up in conversation. She worried almost obsessively whenever we had a family get-together. And I started to wonder, is it possible that someone else could be more upset about this than my husband and I were? And then one day, I got to kind of thinking about the other mothers in her family. Now, I had the rare occasion to know not only my mother and my grandmother, but also my great-grandmother and even my great-great-grandmother. Now, she passed away when I was only 4, and so I don't remember a whole lot about her, except she lived with her sister because between the two of them, they had outlived, not divorced, but outlived 5 husbands. Whew, I guess I got some time on my hands, it's looking like. My great-great-grandmother used to joke, well, half joke really, that she only married the last one because he happened to have the same last name as her maiden name, and she just wanted her own name back before she died. I kind of don't think she was kidding too much about that one. They had to be like 70 at that point anyway. She knew she didn't have much time to put in. But I remember, you couldn't touch much at her house, and that was pretty hard because she had the most exquisite lamp you could ever imagine. It was pink styrofoam egg cartons that she had glued together, crusted with rhinestones and pearls, and I just thought as a 4-year-old that was the most beautiful thing I could ever imagine. I do remember, though, how she would fuss over my grandmother and my mother when we would visit. Were you careful driving over? I thought I heard sirens. Have you eaten any lunch yet? Here's $5 for your gas money. Take this. And I remember even at that age being kind of amused, like, they're 60 years old and 40 years old. Think they'll figure it out, But then that sort of made me realize something else, and that was about my own mom, which, I'm sure she was mourning the loss of my daughter, her granddaughter, but probably just as much at the same time, she was mourning her own daughter, this carefree young woman who will never be the same again. And I just know, when you love someone as much as a parent loves a child, watching them suffer and knowing that you can't do much about it has probably got to be one of the worst things you can go through. So, I'm forgetting my spot here. Sorry. It's at that point where this continuity that can be so comforting starts to turn into endurance or even exhaustion, because it's not just the packed lunches and the bedtimes and the all the routine that goes with children, but it's also just that knowledge that you're never going to be able to stop worrying about them. And I think, sometimes life, various things in life, but especially parenthood, can feel like this marathon with this ever-receding finish line that you can never quite get to. But then I started to see the comfort in that constancy, because I realized that if my grandmother always feels like a mother to my mom, and she still feels like a mother to me, well, then that means that I'm always going to feel like Audrey's mother, no matter what happens. And so I guess, in the end, I'm grateful for all the mothers and children in my life to show me where my place is in that continuity. And even though, Audrey never got to be a mother in this life, I like to think of her and my great-great-grandmother, wherever they are, having a good talk about us and talking back and forth. Have they eaten lunch yet today? Maybe we should remind them to check the brakes on the car. Oh, and let's hide this $5 bill in their pocket for later. So, I know we're all going to find experiences in our life that are really difficult, that we have a hard time understanding the context for, that don't seem meaningful. And I would just like to encourage you, the next time you find yourself in one of those situations, I don't know why I thought of Charlton Heston, but I would just love these. Whether you're the soldier or the father or the leader or the intergalactic lover. I don't know. I would like to challenge you to try to look for the continuity in your life, because sometimes that old saying, there's nothing new under the sun, can be a comfort that we never expected it would be for us. Thank you.